if you're honest about how you feel and you don't hide it, you don't cover it behind a masculine shroud, or you just allow yourself to say, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know if I should feel differently about that. What do you think? They can give you, I'm sure, the right guidance as to how to go there.
This October, we're focusing our podcast on men's mental health. Partnering with Uniting Annesley and Lockhaven facilities, we are having raw and honest discussions around mental health. In this episode, I got to speak to Martin Kellard to understand his views and thoughts on mental health. If anything in this episode is distressing for you or you need support, please reach out to Lifeline Australia or Beyond Blue. So thanks Martin so much for coming on the podcast. So I'm just going to ask some questions if that's okay.
Yeah.
What's your understanding of mental health?
I think it's, the equilibrium you have to live a life without pressure, to live with a balanced view of the world, the ability to, understand your situation. It's a very complex thing to talk about.
Yeah.
You're talking about for your physical health very easily. I'm feeling well. Mental health is very much more difficult to describe because you're in it. I feel perfectly healthy mentally. My brain is active. I go to trivia. We play great trivia together, my mates and I. So, unlike physical health, mental health is a far more complex issue to deal with because, you walk into a doctor's surgery with a bad leg, you probably have a limp. If you walk in with a contusion, you can see it's bruised. But you can walk into a doctor's surgery looking like I do, and I could be severely mentally ill. And unless there was some methodology for unlocking, that truth, the doctor might just not know how to treat you, and you're sort of by yourself. So one of those things I think mental health has to do is to find a way to give people the opportunity to talk about it, to be able to say, I'm not feeling particularly good at the moment. Can we talk about it? And I don't think there are enough people who know quite how to handle that.
So that's the hardest thing, that people don't really know how to reach out for help or understand what they're going through.
Well, people, you've heard everyone ask the question, are you okay? But when they say no, what do they do then? What does the person who's asked the question say? Well, you better talk to somebody. Who do they talk to? And they'll go their GP? Do they go and ask for a second opinion? And, it's very complex, isn't it? It's not so easy to do.
Yeah.
Although what's happened in the last 50 years in terms of how to affect the brain's chemistry to, turn any imbalance into a balanced psyche. All the drugs we have from, very in the beginning was things like Valium. Now we got all the things that, put people on an even keel, and they can sort of rewire the brain so they're not so negative or thinking so negatively. That's all positive. But you've got to get the access to that first of all. That's the hard part. You've got to know you're ill. That's the hard part.
Yeah, I think it's accepting in the first place that maybe you do have that issue.
Of course. Folks, especially men of my generation, I don't know about women so much, but men of my generation have a very difficult time both opening up about their personal issues and also how, you don't really know how to ask for help. No one's ever really told you, so you want to be a stoic. Most of blokes my age, they just pop one up. They say, I don't want to, say anything. And even if you were to be asked, as I was asked, or in fact, no, I wasn't asked, are you okay? No, I do that. But, I answered my own question to my dearest friends, and I really needed their help. They didn't know how to answer what I was going through.
Yeah.
And because they didn't know how to answer it, neither did I. And so I kept on going through the issues I was dealing with and had to do them by myself.
And talking about being stubborn, do you think it was harder? You were talking before about the success you've had in your career and through very high level roles. Do you think it gets harder and harder to sort of accept that there could be an issue? Because people almost don't expect it. Because
exactly. It's difficult because you have been operating at a fairly high level and for a long time. And then when you do hit a roadblock and you think, well, normally I can get past this, but sometimes you can't. And it is you're right, it's a strange thing to be placed in a situation where you think, how am I going to get out of this predicament? How do I make myself feel better? How do I get myself, because I was winning, now I feel as though I'm losing, you know what I mean? That's a big thing.
Yeah, and of course. How do you find expressing how your mental health is going? You sort of already touched on that there, but has that got easier?
Well, nowadays I don't even think about it. I literally don't have to worry about my mental health.
Yeah.
So, I don't sort of go through, I'm much more worried about my physical health. Bad backs and all the other stuff you have to deal with. But no, mental health has never really been a problem for me.
Yeah. Do you think you express yourself differently to other men?
Well, I'm very lucky. I've got probably, 6 very close friends. People would do, but I'm going to say without a word of a lie, they love me. They love me like a brother. They've done tremendous things for me. They've sacrificed things for me. They've helped me all along the way. And so I can talk to them about stuff. But normally what I do isn't so much talk to them, is I'll write an email. And I'll put it in words, because I think it's far easier for me, at least. This is a good example. If I were asking these questions, writing them rather than saying them live to a camera or to the young gentleman. So, it's difficult to express precisely what it is that's worrying you or what it is that is causing you to have anxiety. But I have to say I'm very lucky that the chaps that I have friendships with, if I tell them that I have a problem, whatever it might be, I'm sure they'll be able to help me with it. And as I say, once they know you're in a difficult situation, most men sort of gather around and want to support you because you're a mate. They'll do what they can to help you and know you where they can because they're mates.
Yeah. Are these guys you've known for a long time?
Yeah. The oldest is the oldest friendship is 62 years, and the very youngest of those blokes is 45 years.
Right.
I've had them for that long, so somewhere between 62 and 45 years, all 6 of them. And it's actually probably more than that. I've actually added a thumb. I haven't got them on the wall as my but yeah, I'm very fortunate. I've also got some wonderful female friends as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing which men are unlucky not to have, because a lot of guys don't have female friends. They just have, either wives or ex-wives. Whereas I have at least half a dozen women who I can talk to about virtually anything. And they give me their, the feminine side of things, which is a very important part to get,
I think it's interesting the same thing you've seen, but when it comes to groups of mates as men, it's all that thing about, not showing weakness and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But in reality, if you ever do actually open up to male friends, I think they're very happy to get an arm around you. And so
it's quite right. The difficulty is always going to be bringing it up because, you don't want to bother them for one thing. They have their own problems to deal with. But when you do bring it up, as you say, they're normally, they're always there to help you.
Yeah. We've talked about this a little bit, but what was the stigma around mental health growing up for you? Have you seen it change lives?
I've got to say, I didn't have any idea of mental health as a problem until probably when I was about 40 at work. I found a couple of people had sort of challenges to do with, how they're dealing with life, usually after a pretty severe like the loss of a child or the breakup of a marriage. So up until I was probably 40, I was blissfully unaware that such a thing as mental health was even avoided.
Yeah.
Wasn't like, a physical health where you know that you got to live, because I used to be surprisingly very fit. I used to run a lot and, to spend 2 hours in the gym every day. So I knew all about that stuff. Yeah. And taking care of myself, getting the right vitamins, going to the doctor, getting my teeth fixed, all that sort of stuff. But mentally, you don't go into anywhere for a sort of a mental check, do you?
No.
Give my head a whirl, will you? see what's working and what's not.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah. Does it still impact you? If no, how were you able to get around that? Did mental health does it still impact you? No. If not, how are you able to get around that and sort of move past that?
No, mental health, as I say, I'm much more concerned about my physical health, which is much more, apparent to me. Mentally, I'm very strong, I think. Touch wood. Yeah. So I don't really have the need to talk about it. But I'm sure when the time comes, if I display signs of fragility or emotional issues, I'm sure I'll be asked because of these people, these wonderful folks here. Yeah. They'll probably have experts around to help me deal with the problem. Yeah. But until that happens, I don't want it to. But until it happens, I'm looking towards it, just leaving all that alone,
Yeah. When did the physical stuff start for you? Because I'm 42, and I'm finding that my things are starting to, my knees are going, my ankles are going.
Yeah.
Back.
Up until I was around 55, I was very fit. But then I had a couple of bad falls when I was running, and that caused issues with my knees, and it jolted my back. And unfortunately, one of the worst things that ever happened to me was I stuck my back up playing golf. Unfortunately, it was middle of winter like this, last time of year. And my boss at the time, I wanted to have a quick 9 hours before work one day in the middle of winter. So we got to Oakland Golf Course at about 6 in the morning, didn't warm up. And by the second hole, when I bent down to pick up the tee, I heard and felt a really resounding crack.
Uh-huh.
It was like a shudder of it, and that was the end of my good times with a good back. And I spent the next 2 years going through 13 different physiotherapists, one chiropractor, and a nutty doctor called Dr. Sid, believe it or not, who can put scalpel blades down each side of my spine as a way of fooling the nerves into thinking that it only knows the neurons that it can't say. Unfortunately, that didn't work. Although what it did do, because he did that and he covered it up with a big bandage. I went back to work, and I had a very big meeting with Optus, the client, at about 3 in the afternoon as well. And I stood up to make a point, and the boss said, "Martin, you're bleeding." I was like, I was being aerobic. That's worrying, but it's sort of back injury as always. I didn't actually have any problems with it at all. It just looked bad. I didn't feel bad at all. Yeah. But it did give me a lot of running points with the client.
Yeah. So was golf your main sport?
I love walking. I love running. I did when I retired. Laura and I moved up to Queensland and we bought a house on a golf course, and that was tremendous fun. And we created a whole new network of friends out there, many of whom I still have. And it was a wonderful life. I just had a magnificent time. I changed up my golf handicap, went down from 26 to 9 in 2 years.
Oh,
which is pretty good, isn't it? Unfortunately, but back then went again. And I couldn't play anymore, but it was still very fun to walk with your mates. And, I used to, playing with them and helping them find balls and stuff. It was fun. Even when you couldn't play, it was fun.
Oh, it's one game I wish I was good at, but just terrible.
Seriously, if you have good hand-eye coordination, which is all it really is, it's just being able to time it and the ball. It doesn't take long to learn in play golf. It's easily learned, and then it's a lifetime of improvement.
Yeah.
But you took it.
Yeah, no, so as I was telling you, I would assume that 'cause I'm so bad at golf, that's why it's so frustrating.
Yes.
I thought I used to watch the people that would walk up to the ball, hit it perfectly down the middle of the fairway. Oh, this was so much more enjoyable. We get to that level.
Yeah.
But then I spoke to some good golfers that said that never changes because one,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how good you are, you want to be that next level where you're not getting really frustrated.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll have to keep working on it. Get back to the mental health. Do you think it takes longer for a man to get diagnosed with having mental health issues? It's harder for men.
Well, I don't have any experience of that, so I don't know if I'm what I'm saying. I guess they did, but I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, it's just a question of, I guess if you find the right specialist and you're open with the right specialist and you tell them everything that they need to know, to make a judgment, that's the obvious, the most important thing. Is to be honest with yourself, and so that you talk to them about, what's wrong with you, how you feel at the moment.
Yeah.
What pressures are upon you, and they can obviously ask probing questions. I don't think women necessarily have a better outcome than men. I just think it's necessary for guys to be asked more questions about it because they probably don't know how to describe what their issues really are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you anxious? Are you worried? Do you have concerns about it? Or, I really don't know because I haven't had any experience of it, so we can't be
Fair enough. Yeah. I just have one more question for you. From what you have seen, do you have any recommendations to other men that might have been impacted by mental health from what you have seen in your life?
I think it's important to acknowledge the possibility that you might need help. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing. I think that too many of us try to just, mumble through, get around it, find something. And of course, it's not the way to do it. I mean, if you really want to have a happy, healthy life, and to be mentally fit and physically fit, and you are feeling pressure or you feel anxiety or any other of the other myriad issues that mental health brings out, if you could find a way to, get the clarity that only comes from the right people asking you the right questions and you giving them honest answers. If you're honest about how you feel and you don't hide it, you don't cover it in a masculine shroud, or you just allow yourself to say, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know if I should feel differently about that. What do you think? They can give you, I'm sure, the right guidance as to how to go about it. And as I say, these days, there's so many chemical solutions to problems that used to be insurmountable. Now I don't think people have to suffer mental health so much anymore. Obviously, as it gets more difficult, some of the folks in, for example, are very highly demented. But there must have been some progress that took place. And perhaps they didn't get the help they needed early enough. I don't know. But I would certainly say that that's the most important thing. Be honest about it, both to yourself, and then once you do get the courage to ask for help, making sure that the person who's dealing with you gets the honesty of your responses as well.
I think it very much comes down to the person's personality. So I've always been someone that's quite happy to be open about what's going on. I'm quite happy to talk about things, not just let everyone, but I'm quite quick to open up and say, I've got stuff that's on my mind or I'm struggling with. But I guess you get those people that are very sort of the opposite to that, very much a closed book.
Of course, yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to find it much harder to reach out and say something.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on for a chat. Really enjoyed it.
Easy.
Yeah. Anything else that we haven't covered on this topic that springs to mind, or?
Not really. As I said, one of the most difficult things about mental health is it's invisible. I remember I read a book once about depression, and it was written by a guy called William Styron, the guy that wrote Sophie's Choice. And the book title I thought was tremendously powerful. It was Darkness Visible. Darkness Visible. A great book, by the way. And he described what it was like to be in a truly depressive state. And I've never experienced anything like that. But in a way, it was for me a good barometer, because it made you realize, well, if that's where the really difficult experience must be on not having that problem at all. So I can at least, breathe easy about that.
Gives you a good idea of where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what a great place to start, though. If people are worried about going and talking to someone, reading a book on it, or people that can Google or and chat GBT these days, you can pull out so much information. We have to go to that step of actually reaching out. So there's a lot of knowledge out there now.
Exactly, there is.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having a chat.
Thank you. Thank you.